So hello there guys, my name is Panilag, and today I'm gonna show you a simple tutorial on how to properly disassemble and assemble a system unit, as well as to show you guys the specifications on each component inside of a system unit. So without further ado, let's get
So before we actually get to open the actual system unit, we have to first make sure to discharge the system unit so that it will drain all of the build-up static from the system unit. And to do so, you just have to simply touch the chassis of the system unit for about 20 or more seconds. So I'm gonna do that first. So now it has been around 20 or 25 seconds or maybe more. So now we can freely open this thing now without worrying any static buildup or whatever. So yeah, let's open this unit. Oh, and I forgot to mention this to you guys. The actual chassis itself, it's called this is the brand Honda Technologies. So this is the Honda Technologies chassis, which by the way, it's a rather old chassis, because I think this came around 2010 or 2011. I'm not entirely sure, but nonetheless, it's still a rather old chassis. But however, these chassis have some decent features that you would normally see in today's chassis or system unit. And first of all, we have this rather big ventilation, which is good, because if your chassis has a decent ventilation, you can get a lot more airflow into it. So that's a plus. And over here we have I think this 80mm fan holder, which by the way, this is the side panel of the chassis. And there's also one over here in the back panel. It is also an 80mm fan holder, and that's the back IO. And this is the expansion slots here. There's 7 of them, and this is where you put the power supply. This is the PSU holder over here. And over here, the front panel, we have 2 DVD drive trays here. This is where you put your DVD drives, but I don't have one here. I don't have a DVD drive, so that's that. And this is also a DVD drive tray. DVD drive tray rather. This is a small one. This is a smaller version of it. And over here we have 2 USB 2.0. I'm sorry if it's like a little rusty on the outside, because then again, this is a rather old chassis, so expect to see some rustiness later on in the video. And we have on top we have I think it's a microphone jack over here. If we can focus it, okay, there we go. On top that's the microphone jack, and the bottom one, the headphone jack. So this still works, even though it's come to its age. This ports over here, it still works just fine. And over here is the power button. This big button is the power button, and these two symbols, these are just like LED indicators if your computer is actually working fine. So this these two symbols will light up if your computer is turned on. And over here, this little button here, this is the reset button. So whenever you try to turn on your computer and decide to restart, you can just simply hold this button for around 5 seconds and it will automatically restart your computer. So I guess that's it. So let's get this unit open, shall we? So we are now going to proceed to open the chassis or the system unit. Now, as you can see, there's these two screws that right beside in the side panel. These are actually called thumb screws. The reason why there's the reason why they are called thumb screws is because you can just unscrew them with just your thumb, like so. And there you have it. And bottom one as well. Make sure to loosen them clockwise. Alright. There you go. Now we have two thumb screws here. Now I recommend you guys to put this aside that is somewhere near your unit. Don't just like put this like elsewhere, or it might get lost or fall over and you will be having a hard time to find them there, because these are relatively small. That's why you gotta have to keep them the same table as your chassis. So, and make sure to align them as well. That way you know that this is for the side panel. Okay, so let's open this up. So I decided to lay down the chassis so that I can easily open this side panel off. So I'm gonna do that. You see this, like this button looking thing is a nudge so that you can slide it over, because this is also like a lock for it, for the side panel. And so you can just like slide it off like so, and there. Now it is completely exposed. So this is it. This is the inside of a system unit, which this is all the components of it, which I'm gonna tell you what they are later on. But first I'm gonna tell you guys two things which are very crucial when disassembling and assembling a system unit. So first things first, get your tools ready, specifically a screwdriver. Now there's two types of screwdrivers, which is the magnetic and the non-magnetic one, which in my case I have the magnetic one. The magnetic one makes it so that your work will be a lot more easier, because when you unscrew a component, you can just simply like grab the screws from the end of the screwdriver, which has the magnetic tip on it. So yeah, if you have a magnetic screwdriver, I recommend use that so that your work will be a lot more easier. But a non-magnetic screwdriver would do just fine as well. So yeah, get your tools ready. Now secondly, this is also very important. So even though we already discharged the system unit earlier, technicians usually recommend to use a tool called a anti-static wrist strap. Now, anti-static wrist strap is essentially protects yourself from any static that is also built up from the component. So unfortunately, I don't have any like static anti-static restrap on me. I don't have that tool with me. But however, I have a tip for you guys. So to compensate on having no anti-static wrist wrap, you can just simply use a floor mat. Now you can use any kind, like a foam or whatever, but this foam, or rather a floor mat, this acts as a ground. This acts as a ground. So whenever you try to disassemble a component and there's static of it, that static will go through this floor mat, because this acts as a ground. So this is essentially a grounding mat for you to properly disassemble a system unit. So yeah, so you're gonna have to deal if you don't have an anti-static wrist wrap, you can just use a floor mat to act as a grounding mechanism. So yeah, now that we are freely now that we are ready our tools, and we have a grounding mechanism now, so we should be good to go. So we will now proceed to disassemble the components inside of a system unit. So first things first, the first thing that you gotta do when disassembling a computer or a system unit, you have to make sure that every cable is unplugged from the component, such as the motherboard and the storage drives. So that's what we're going to do first. So I'm gonna plug this cable here, or rather this 4-pin power connector. This is the first thing that we unplug. This is a 4-pin power connector of the CPU. So let's put it there. And the next one is the 24 power pin connector, which is typically nowadays it's located in the very end of the motherboard. So it is a bit hard to pull it out, but you have to like pull it gently, otherwise you might damage the motherboard itself, which that would be bad. Now, okay, there we go. So this is the 24-pin power connector right here. So I'll put this aside. Now for storage drives. Now I use 2 storage drives. This top one here is actually an SSD storage drive, and the bottom one, this is a hard drive. So first of all, let's pull out or unplug the SATA cables right here and unplug it. SATA ports or slots from the motherboard, and there you go. This is a SATA cable, what it does is, this is where it receives and sends data from your storage drive into your system. So I'm gonna put this aside here. This one is the SATA power connector. Okay, this is what it looks like. Now for the second storage drive, again SATA cable. Pull it out. like so. And set the power connector. Right, there you go. Now all of the cables all of the connectors of the power supply is now been removed or unplugged. So let's put this aside for now, right there. And now let's unplug these bottom wires in here. So this one right here at the very end of it, I don't know if you can see that, but this one I'm pointing at, this is the audio, like this is the audio connector of your system. So again, typically nowadays motherboard, usually this is located very bottom, it's in the very bottom of the motherboard. So there you go, this is the audio connector. And now for the USB front cables here, just unplug it very gently. Right, there you go. And now this is the crucial part. This is actually one of the crucial things that you have to take consider of, because this is right here. This is the most this is the most complicated connector of all in the bottom section here, because this is where this is where the power connector, or rather the power button connector is located, as well as the reset button, the LEDs, the power switch and whatnot. The reason why it's complicated, it's because, okay, if I try to pull this, okay, again, very slowly and gently. Okay, there you go. Okay, the reason why it is very complicated, it's because, look, they are like separated, each of them, and you cannot just like stick them all together and just plug in and back again when you assemble it back. No, there's actually labels for them to where they go, and sometimes it's kind of a bit confusing, and it's hard to plug it in back of them. But it's okay. We will figure it out, and it's actually very simple. There's a method to it. So yeah, let's put this aside for now. And now essentially every cable is now unplugged from the motherboard. So, well, except for this one, because this one is the fan connector, or the fan power connector of the power supply, or not the power supply, but for the CPU. It's the CPU fan here. So okay, now let's proceed to the next step. Okay, and now that that's done, let's now proceed to the second step. So let's see here which next component we're gonna disassemble it. Let's go for the storage drives. Okay, let's this time I'm gonna use our screwdriver to unscrew the storage drives here. Let's move the camera first. Okay, there we go. So this is actually a hard drive bay here, right here. This is where you put all your hard drives in it. So I'm just gonna unscrew this guy. Okay, there you go. So again, like I said before, once you unscrew some of the screws in this component, you gotta make sure to keep this somewhere safe and doesn't lose easily. So I recommend you to put this aside or very much close to your system. That way you can know that it's right there beside you. Don't just put it elsewhere because it might get lost and or whatnot. So much like before, this is the thumb screws and this is for the hard drives. Okay, for the second screw. Alright, now let's go for the SSD hard drive, or rather SSD storage drive. Okay, let's unscrew this. So this is an SSD here, which is a Kingston brand. It has, I think it has 120 gig capacity here, which by the way, this is significantly better than an regular hard drive, because this uses flash memory instead of a disk, which the hard drive uses. So let's put this aside here. Okay, let's put it aside right there. So I put my SSD right here. Now let's get the hard drive itself. So here we go. This is the hard drive. So mine is Toshiba brand, and it has 500 gig storage. So yeah, this is also from December 2013, which is kind of old now, but it still works fine nonetheless. And there's still a little bit of rustiness to it, but yeah, this is a hard drive. So let's put this aside. Okay, right there, as you can see, there's where I put all my components here. Put that there. And now let's remove the RAM next. So this is actually by far the easiest component to disassemble, because all you have to do is press or unclip this dim slab over here on the edges. You simply have to like unclip this. So now it's unclipped. Now let's gently remove the RAM itself from the dim slab. Okay. So this is the RAM. So my RAM has let's see here, focus. Okay, there we go. So my RAM has a 4 gig. This is a 4 gig RAM, DDR4 with 2400 megahertz of speed. So this is a decent RAM. It's there's no heat sink or whatever, but it's decent. So yeah, nowadays if you run a OS Windows 10, you should probably get more than 4 gig. but a 4 gig RAM will do just fine, and it will completely run smoothly and okay. So it will do just fine, and we only have one RAM, which is okay. But a dual memory channel or dual memory RAM is more recommendable nowadays. So yeah, this is the RAM right here. So actually it also depends, like since this is DDR4, you see this like space here. If you have a DDR3 or DDR2 RAM, this space right here might be in a different spot. I think it could be somewhere in here or here. I'm not entirely sure where the space is, if you have a DDR3 or DDR2, but this is a DDR4. It's in very much the middle of the RAM stick where the space is, this little space here. So yeah, let's put this aside. Let's go here, and now let's actually do the power supply next. Now yeah, let's do the power supply next. This will be the next component we'll be disassembled with. So now, in order for the PSU or the power supply to be fully removed, you have to actually unscrew the screws outside of the chassis. So that's where it's located. There's also on the top here. There's a total of 4 screws that you have to unscrew. So I'm gonna do that now. Let's see here. With that, we're now have to like simply slide this from the casing right there, and just grab everything right. There you go. So this is actually the power supply that I have. This is the brand. It's a brand called Civis, which is I'm pretty sure this is just a very relatively generic brand. Although it has black coating, which is a plus, because if a power supply has like just a metal plate and whatnot, it's gonna go rust like fairly quickly. So having a black coating power supply is actually really good. So yeah, that's a plus for this brand. But this is not a 80+ certified, which is okay. It can still run. It can still like do its job and whatnot. It's just not very efficient because it's not 80+ certified. Also, this has 700 watts, which is a lot. It's a lot of power. It can very much like do 24/7 task. Yeah. So obviously my power supply is non-modular. So there are 3 types of power supply. They are non-modular, which is the one I have in this case. Second is the semi-modular, and last is the fully modular. the semi-modular is kind of look like this. It has the same look to it. You see this like this wires coming out from this socket or hole from the power supply. It kind of looks like this, but instead there's also some ports. Just imagine there's some ports in here. So that's also like where you plug in all of the power connector, like 24 pin or 4 pin connector, whatnot. Maybe even a PCIe connector. So yeah, and a fully modular is just this hole right here, like this, that one is just completely gone, and instead it's just full of ports. And that's essentially what it is. It just takes out this compressed power connector and then put it on here, like in this kind of section right here, and then just try to imagine that this is like ports in here and whatnot. So yeah, so that's my power supply. So yeah, I'm gonna put this aside for now. Right here, besides from my other components. Okay, there's my storage drives, the RAM, and the power supply. So the next one is going to be the components of the motherboard. So let's do that. Okay, now let's begin to unscrew the motherboard itself. And done. So before I actually remove the actual motherboard, there is one more component, and that is inside of this fan here, which is the most crucial, I think, to me. So yeah, let's now remove this CPU fan with the heat sink on it. So first things first, you have to unplug this guy, the 4-pin 12-volt fan power connector. It's rather small. So now, yeah, you just have to like unclip that to remove this particular heatsink or CPU fan, like so. And now that it's unclipped from the bracket, this bracket, this is the bracket here, and you can now simply remove it, like so. So this is the CPU fan with heatsink. As you can see, this is like the what's it called? This is the pre-applied thermal paste here. So this is very you have to take precaution measures here, because this is the CPU itself. This is considered the brain of the computer. And now what I have here, this is a AMD manufacturer. So this is a AMD processor. To remove the CPU, every motherboard manufacturer always has this like what's it called, like it's like a lock in order for the CPU to actually lock in place, and this time we're going to unlock it. So this is somewhat a old AMD processor. This is their A series. This is the AMD A10 9700 series. So this is like before the Zen. This is before the Zen series showed up, and this is back then. People used this AMD series, the A10, the A series. So I'm pretty sure this has 3.50 gigahertz, and it can bump up to 3.80 gigahertz when overclocked. And this has 4 cores and 4 threads, I believe. Yeah, it can run like fairly relatively nowadays applications. It's not considered as bad processor. It's a decent processor nonetheless. So if you want to purchase a AMD processor, you might want to go for a bit higher than A series. Recommendable, which is the Zen series, which is the Ryzen series. So yeah, so this is the processor that I have here. Okay, now I'm gonna be fully careful with it. I'm gonna actually put this right here. Okay, right there. It's a bit blurry. But there we go. Now that that's done, we can now fully remove the motherboard. There you go. So let's talk about the motherboard. And as you can see right there, this is the Asus Prime A20MK. So this is somewhat relatively cheap, and this is let's see, a budget friendly motherboard, because unlike Intel, their motherboards is like way more expensive than the AMD system. So I forgot to mention about the ports at the back here, and the top one, this is the PS2 ports. This is the keyboard, this is the mouse, and VGA port, HDMI, a 4 3.0 USB, and two 2.0 USB, and we have the Ethernet port here, and the audio video microphone ports here at the back. So yeah, it's just it's a very standard ports here. Let's proceed to the next step, which I believe we're now in the the assemble of the build. So yeah, let's go. So done. This is now the assemble part of our system unit. So since the motherboard and the CPU is the last components that I did in the disassemble part, it is now the component that I do first in the assemble part. So yeah, let's proceed with caution here. So you're just gonna have to find these standoffs in your chassis, all of these to align them and to connect them outside. So you have to simply just align everything here. This is how you install a CPU into your CPU socket. in order for you to put the CPU inside the CPU circuit, you just have to correlate this triangle shape and find the other triangle shape of the CPU socket and correlate that to wherever that is. There's the triangle shape as well, so you just have to correlate that to wherever that spot is. So in my case, it's in there. It's the triangle shape here, so we're just gonna align that there. So the next component that we're gonna install is the RAM. So the next thing I did is the power supply. So on to the next one, which is the storage drives. So now that that's done, we can now proceed to plug all the power cable connector into the motherboard. So first of all, let's plug in the 24-pin power connector. So remember what I told you guys about this all this power switch, HD, LED, reset switch, and power button and whatnot, and I said like this is like the most complicated and most like difficult to like pinpoint, because they are like usually it's the first of all is the hard disk or no, HDD LED. That's like the first one, and then the second one, power LED. Okay, you have to put that in that kind of pattern. You have to put the HDD first, and then below that is the power LED. Next one is going to be the reset switch right there, and then the bottom, or the bottom one, is going to be power switch. So like that. So you just have to pull it like that. Make sure they are correctly aligned. Is attach this side panel, which by the way I completely forgot to mention this. I don't have any fans in here. I don't have any fan in my system, so that's just that. Like it still works nonetheless. It just gets really hot because it doesn't have any like cooling mechanism or whatever. There you have it, guys. That's how you assemble, or rather disassemble and assemble a system unit. So thanks for watching, guys.